Jack Thornton was having a perfectly average Tuesday evening when the aliens abducted him. He just wheeled the garbage bin to the curb, wearing his ratty bathrobe and slippers, when a beam of pulsating blue light froze him mid-stride. His last coherent thought before being yanked skyward was that he'd forgotten to file Mrs. Henderson's questionable water damage claim. Subject secured, Captain. The voice sounded like someone had taught a dolphin to speak through a kazoo. Jack's eyes fluttered open to reveal a circular room bathed in soft cyan light. Four tall, willowy creatures with iridescent skin stared at him with unblinking silver eyes. They had the general shape of humans, if humans had been designed by someone who'd only seen them in stick figure drawings. "Greetings, human Jack Thornton," said the tallest one. "I am Captain Nixtal of the Veridian scout vessel Unwavering Truth. We have borrowed you." Jack blinked. "Borrowed? Don't you mean kidnapped?" The aliens exchanged uncomfortable glances. The one wearing what looked like a metallic sash shifted nervously. "Kidnapping implies permanent acquisition. We intend to return you. Therefore, we have temporarily borrowed you." "Right. And I'm supposed to just go along with this because..." Captain Nixtal's head tilted at a precise 27-degree angle. "Because we need your unique human ability, and we are prepared to compensate you with advanced knowledge and technology." "My unique human ability?" Jack raised an eyebrow. "Look, I'm an insurance claims adjuster. The only thing unique about me is my ability to find loopholes in water damage policies." "Precisely." The captain's skin rippled with excitement, flashing like the northern lights. "You're skilled in the art of creative interpretation of facts." A smaller alien stepped forward. "I am Lieutenant Vela, science officer. Our species is physically incapable of deception. Our neural pathways reject falsehood like your human immune system rejects disease." Jack laughed. "You're saying you can't lie? At all?" "Affirmative," replied Captain Nixtal. "And this has created a diplomatic crisis with the Kraxan Empire. They are aggressive expansionists who respect only superior deception in negotiations." Another alien, wearing what looked like a crown of swirling metal, cleared their throat. "I am Diplomatic Officer Zenith. The Kraxans value what they call strategic truth management. Our inability to engage in this practice has put our home system at risk." Jack rubbed his temples. "So you borrowed me to, what? Lie for you?" All four aliens nodded in perfect synchronization. "The fate of 17 billion Veridians depends on successful negotiation," said Captain Nixtal. "We need you to serve as our representative and employ your human talent for alternative factual presentation." Jack stared at them. "You want me to bullshit space dictators to prevent an interstellar war?" The aliens looked at each other in confusion. "I do not understand this bullshit term," said Lieutenant Vela, "but if it means to create strategic ambiguity through selective representation of reality, then yes, that is what we require." Jack sighed deeply. "And if I say no?" "Then we return you to your dwelling and seek another human," said Captain Nixtal. "We will not force you." Jack thought about his job. About Mrs. Henderson's water damage claim that he was going to deny even though the policy technically covered it. About his empty apartment and microwave dinners. What's in it for me? Knowledge. Technology. And the satisfaction of saving billions of lives, said Diplomatic Officer Zenith. Jack considered this. "Throw in a way to make my coffee maker work without that annoying gurgling noise, and you've got a deal." The next few days were spent in what Jack could only describe as lying 101 for truth-addicted aliens. The Veridians watched in fascination as he demonstrated the art of white lies, exaggeration, bluffing, and what he called the insurance special, technically telling the truth while implying something completely different. "But why would you tell your friend that their food preparation was pleasant when it was not?" asked Lieutenant Vela during one session. "Because sometimes the truth hurts feelings, and hurting feelings isn't worth the momentary satisfaction of honesty," Jack explained. Fascinating, Vela made notes on a translucent tablet. "So deception can be kind?" "Exactly. Not all lies are harmful. Sometimes they're necessary social lubricant. The fourth alien, who Jack learned was Navigator Pulsar, looked physically ill. I cannot comprehend. If I attempted such a falsehood, my autonomic nervous system would trigger a purge response. You'd vomit from lying? Jack asked incredulously. Among other unpleasant physical reactions, confirmed Vela with a grimace. Captain Nixtal stood rigid in the corner. We are approaching the Kraxan diplomatic station. Jack Thornton, are you prepared to represent us as ambassador from Earth? Ambassador? Whoa, I thought I was just going to feed you lines or something. The Kraxans would detect our discomfort immediately. You must be our voice entirely. The captain's skin pulsed with anxiety. The fate of our species depends on your performance. No pressure, thought Jack. The Kraxan diplomatic station looked like someone had taken a medieval torture chamber and decided it would make excellent interior design inspiration for a space station. Everything was angular, metallic, and vaguely threatening. The Kraxans themselves resembled 7-foot-tall humanoid lobsters with extra limbs and eyes mounted on stalks. Ambassador Thornton of Earth, rasped the lead Kraxan, Supreme Negotiator Klax. We were unaware that the Veridians had allied with your species. Jack straightened his hastily fabricated diplomatic uniform, which was really just his suit with alien medals attached to make it look official. The alliance is recent but strong, Jack said smoothly. Earth recognizes the value of Veridian transparent communication technologies. Klax's eye stalks twisted toward each other. Interesting. And what does Earth offer in this alliance? Strategic consulting, Jack replied without missing a beat. The Veridians appreciate our unique perspective. The negotiations stretched for hours. Jack ducked and weaved through diplomatic traps, employing every trick he'd learned as an insurance adjuster. When the Kraxans insisted that the Veridians surrender 3 star systems as a gesture of goodwill, Jack countered by suggesting a temporary resource-sharing arrangement instead. It was essentially the same rejected claim letter he'd sent to policyholders, just dressed up in space diplomacy. During a brief recess, Lieutenant Vela pulled him aside, her skin dimmed to a concerned gray. Jack, we've intercepted Kraxan communications. They're planning to invade regardless of these negotiations. They're just buying time to position their fleet. Jack's heart sank. So this is all pointless? Not necessarily, said Vela. If we could convince them that invading would be costly. Jack thought about it. Do the Kraxans know about your inability to lie? It is common knowledge among spacefaring species. A slow smile spread across Jack's face. Then I have an idea. When negotiations resumed, Jack changed tactics entirely. Supreme Negotiator Klax, before we continue, I should inform you that Earth has installed quantum defense matrices throughout Veridian space. Klax's mandibles clicked rapidly. We have detected no such installations. That's their primary feature, Jack said with practiced casualness. Untraceable until activated. Earth specializes in defensive technologies that remain dormant until aggression is detected. The Kraxan negotiators' eye stalks twitched. You expect us to believe this without evidence? Jack shrugged. Ask the Veridians if what I'm saying is true. Klax turned to Captain Nixtal. Captain, does Earth truly have these defensive installations in your territory? Jack held his breath. This was the gamble. The captain couldn't lie, but Jack had prepared for this. Ambassador Thornton speaks with the full authority of Earth, said Nixtal carefully. The nature of our security arrangements is as he describes. Not a lie. Jack did have full authority to speak for Earth, at least as far as the Veridians were concerned. And the nature of their security arrangements was indeed as Jack described, non-existent. Klax's compound eyes narrowed. We would require specifications of these defense systems. I'm afraid that's classified, Jack replied. But I can tell you they were tested against the Zorgan Armada. You've heard what happened to them, I assume. The Kraxans hadn't heard anything about a Zorgan Armada, but they couldn't admit that without losing face. Of course, Klax said stiffly. We will reconsider our territorial requests in light of this information. 3 hours later, Jack sat in the Veridian ship's common area, sipping something that tasted almost but not entirely unlike coffee. I still don't understand how you did it, said Navigator Pulsar. You made them believe in defenses that don't exist. I leveraged their ignorance and pride, Jack explained. They couldn't admit they didn't know about the fictional Zorgon Armada. And more importantly, I never asked you to lie. I just arranged things so that the truth served our purposes. Captain Nixtal's skin glowed with admiration. You have saved our people, Jack Thornton. The Craxons have withdrawn their fleet and proposed a genuine peace treaty. Just doing what I do best, Jack said with a grin. Finding loopholes. When the Veridians finally returned Jack to Earth, only hours had passed. As he stood in his driveway, Lieutenant Vela handed him a small device. For your coffee maker, she said. No more gurgling. Jack smiled. Thanks. So I guess this is goodbye? Captain Nixtal stepped forward. Actually, the High Council was impressed by your performance. They've created a new position, official human consultant for interspecies negotiations. You want to hire me? To professionally lie to aliens? To creatively interpret facts in diplomatic contexts, corrected Vela with what Jack now recognized as the Veridian version of a smile. Jack looked at his house, thought about Mrs. Henderson's claim waiting on his desk, and then back at the stars above. When do I start? 2 days later, Jack submitted his resignation from Reliable Insurance Company. His boss didn't quite believe his explanation about an international diplomatic opportunity, but Jack didn't care. He had bullshitted his way into saving an alien civilization and landed the galaxy's strangest job. Not bad for a Tuesday evening. As he packed his apartment, Jack glanced at Mrs. Henderson's claim on his coffee table. With a smile, he approved it in full. After all, he was now an ambassador of sorts. It seemed only right to start with a diplomatic gesture. That night, as the Veridian ship returned to collect him, Jack realized there was a beautiful irony to it all. A species that couldn't tell a lie had taught him the true value of honesty, while he had shown them that sometimes, the right kind of deception could be the perfect way to tell the truth. 3 months into his new career as official human consultant for interspecies negotiations, Jack Thornton was starting to get the hang of interstellar diplomacy. His apartment now sat empty on Earth, his coffee maker repurposed with Veridian technology to produce the perfect cup without a sound. His new quarters aboard the diplomatic vessel calculated ambiguity were twice the size of his old place, with a viewport that looked out on whatever star system they happened to be visiting. Ambassador Thornton, your presence is required in the strategy chamber, announced the ship's communication system. Jack still wasn't used to being called ambassador, but it beat claims adjuster any day of the week. Captain Nixtal and Lieutenant Vela were waiting for him, their skin pulsing with anxious blues and purples. What's the crisis this time? Jack asked, dropping into his specially designed human chair. Another territorial dispute? Trade agreement gone wrong? Please tell me no one's threatening genocide before lunch. We have received a distress call from the Galactic Council, said Captain Nixtal. They are hosting the Centennial Species Summit, and there is a situation. Vela's skin rippled. The Mendari and Phobians are on the verge of declaring war over a misunderstanding. Jack sighed. Let me guess, someone said something that was technically true but catastrophically misinterpreted? Precisely, Nixtal confirmed. The Mendari ambassador stated that Phobian reproductive practices were inefficient. The Phobians have taken this as a declaration of biological superiority and threat of extinction. And was it? Vela shook her head. The Mendari meant it as a scientific observation about energy expenditure. They are fascinated by Phobian biology. Jack rubbed his temples. His new job had quickly taught him that interspecies communication was a minefield of potential disasters. What was a casual observation to one species could be a mortal insult to another. So I need to convince the Phobians that the Mendari were paying them a compliment while explaining to the Mendari why their observation was offensive without making either side lose face? You grasped the situation perfectly, said Nixtal. 4 hours later, Jack stood between two alien delegations in the grand chamber of the Galactic Council. The Mendari resembled elegant praying mantises wearing elaborate jeweled harnesses. The Phobians looked like sentient puffs of orange gas contained within crystalline exoskeletons. Both sides were bristling with whatever passed for indignation in their respective physiologies. Distinguished representatives, Jack began, giving his best insurance claim denial smile. I believe we have a perfect opportunity for enhanced biological collaboration. The Phobian ambassadors' gases swirled angrily. The Mendari have declared our reproductive processes inferior. Not inferior, Jack corrected smoothly. Specialized for ecological adaptation. In fact, the Mendari Academy of Sciences has proposed a joint research initiative to study how your reproduction conserves energy while producing genetic diversity. This was, of course, complete nonsense. Jack had invented the research initiative on the spot. But he knew the Mendari couldn't contradict him without causing further offense. The Mendari ambassadors' antennae twitched. We have always respected Phobian biological innovations. Precisely, Jack continued. And the Phobians' unique energy-conserving reproduction methods could provide invaluable insights for the Mendari's own biomechanical research. By the end of the session, Jack had not only prevented an interstellar war but had accidentally initiated what would become the most productive cross-species research project in Council history. Neither side fully understood how they'd gone from the brink of war to scientific collaboration, but both were satisfied with the outcome. Back on the ship, Vela was waiting for him. That was remarkable, she said. How did you know the Mendari would be interested in energy conservation research? Jack grinned. I didn't. But I knew they wouldn't contradict me in public, and they're too curious not to follow through once I suggested it. You improvised an entire scientific initiative? Vela, half of human diplomacy is making things up on the spot and hoping everyone saves face by going along with it. Jack sank into his chair. In insurance, we call it finding mutually beneficial resolution pathways. It's basically just making up a story both sides can live with. Vela's skin pulsed with thoughtful blues. We have been studying your methods, Jack. The Council has requested a training program for other species to learn your techniques. You want me to teach other aliens how to creatively interpret facts? Jack laughed. Talk about job security. There is one small complication, Nixtal said, entering the room. We have received another request for your services. From the Kraxans. Jack nearly choked on his not-quite coffee. The space lobsters want my help. After I completely fabricated Earth's defense systems to prevent them from invading you? They were impressed, Nixtal said simply. They believe you outmaneuvered them skillfully, which they respect. They wish to hire you as a consultant. Let me get this straight, Jack said, setting down his drink. The species I lied to wants to hire me because I lied to them so well? The universe is full of ironies, Vela observed. Jack thought about it for a moment. You know what? Tell them I'll consider their offer for the extremely reasonable consulting fee of. He named a figure so astronomical it made Nixtal's skin briefly turn white with shock. 3 days later, the Kraxans accepted his terms without negotiation. I don't understand, Jack said when he received their response. Why would they agree to that ridiculous fee? Captain Nixtal's skin rippled with what Jack had come to recognize as amusement. Because, Jack Thornton, in accepting such terms without question, they believe they have demonstrated their superior wealth and power over you. Jack burst out laughing. So they're overpaying me to show off? Indeed, said Vela. And in doing so, they have given you exactly what you wanted while believing they have the advantage. Jack shook his head in wonder. I'm starting to think you Veridians understand deception better than you let on. We cannot lie, Nixtal reminded him. But after 3 months of observing you, we are becoming quite adept at understanding how others use truth, creatively. As the ship set course for the Kraxan homeworld, Jack realized he'd never been happier. From adjusting insurance claims in his bathrobe to preventing interstellar wars and getting paid absurd amounts by space lobsters, all because he knew how to bend the truth just right. Sometimes, Jack reflected, the most valuable skill in the universe isn't telling the perfect lie, but knowing exactly when and how to tell it. And for a species that couldn't lie to save their lives, the Veridians were turning out to be excellent students. Now, if only he could figure out how to explain his new career to his mother the next time he visited Earth. Interstellar BS artist probably wouldn't fit well on a business card.